Module 5, Physiology Respiration. Superfast Simplified Physiology Video Lecture. Notes. Guyton and Hall 14, edition. Chapter number 38, Respiration. Lecture number 11. Learning Objectives. Define dead space and explain its types. Definition of dead space. Types of dead space. 1. Anatomical dead space. 2. Physiological dead space. A conducting zone which conducts air from outside atmosphere into lungs. No gaseous exchange takes place in the conducting zone. It is known as dead space. It simply fills respiratory passages, such as nose, pharynx, and trachea, from external nares to terminal bronchioles. It is not useful for gas exchange. Normal dead space volume. The normal dead space air in a young man is about 150 millibel, 30% of the TV. Dead space air increases slightly with age. Anatomical dead space. It is the volume of all the space of the respiratory system other than the alveoli and their other closely related gas exchange areas. This space is called the anatomic dead space. Explanation or concept of anatomical dead space. Although 500 milliliter of air are moved in and out with each breath, only 350 milliliter are actually exchanged between the atmosphere and the alveoli because of the 150 milliliter occupying the anatomic dead space. At the end of inspiration, the respiratory airways are filled with 150 milliliter of fresh atmospheric air from the inspiration. During the subsequent expiration, 500 milliliter of air are expired to the atmosphere. The first 150 milliliter expired are the fresh air that was retained in the airways and never used. The remaining 350 milliliter expired are old alveolar air that has participated in gas exchange with the blood. During the same expiration, 500 milliliter of gas also leave the alveoli. The first 350 milliliter are expired to the atmosphere. The other 150 milliliter of old alveolar air never reach the outside but remain in the conducting airways. On the next inspiration, 500 milliliter of gas enter the alveoli. The first 150 milliliter to enter the alveoli are the old alveolar air that remained in the dead space during the previous expiration. The other 350 milliliter entering the alveoli are fresh air inspired from the atmosphere. Simultaneously, 500 milliliter of air enter from the atmosphere. The first 350 milliliter of atmospheric air reach the alveoli. The other 150 milliliter remain the conducting airways without exchanged with the blood as the cycle repeats itself. Two, physiological dead space. It is the sum of the anatomical dead space and the alveolar dead space. Some of the alveoli are non-functional or only partially functional because of absent or poor blood flow through the nearby capillaries. Alveoli ventilated but not perfused. These alveoli must also be considered dead space when the alveolar dead space is included in the anatomical. dead space is called physiological dead space. Physiological dead space is the volume of air that does not take part in gas exchange due to ventilation-perfusion mismatch. In a person with healthy lungs, the anatomical and physiological dead spaces are nearly equal because all alveoli are functional in the normal lung. But in a person with partially functional or non-functional alveoli in some parts of the lungs, the physiological dead space may be as much as 10 times the volume of the anatomical dead space, or 1 to 2 liters.